Hey guys, I've been asked many times about serrated edges, what I think about them, what I prefer, and why. Sorry, I'm all cut up. I get cut all the time on my hands, testing knives and sharpening knives. I'm always tore up, so I apologize. The dryer's going too, so sorry about that also. Um, it's obvious if you know my collection that I prefer plain edge knives. That's mainly because I enjoy sharpening plain edge knives. I enjoy cutting with plain edged knives. I just like them aesthetically. Pretty much everything about a knife, I want it to be plain edge. I like it better when it's plain edge. Serrated edges aren't bad or anything. They're just not my cup of tea. There are a few things about serrated edges that are kind of good, and there are some that are kind of bad. First off, serrated edges are arguably, some people see it differently, are harder to sharpen. They are always chisel ground. I've never seen any V ground serrations. You have to sharpen inside the grooves right here, and then you have to pretty much essentially sharpen it like a chisel ground blade, but you have these peaks that make it a little bit more difficult. Now, serrated edges can get just as sharp as plain edges. You just have to know what you're doing. I've sharpened this Leatherman Charge. I just did some rope cutting with it just to see what it felt like, and then I sharpened it back up, and if I get in one of the teeth, then I can actually push cut paper with the serrations. As you can see, I mean, the serrations are sharp. You just have to know what you're doing. It is a little bit more difficult though. The whole thing with cutting with serrations, to me, there is nothing that serrations can do better than a sharp plain edge. That doesn't mean that serrations don't have advantages when cutting abrasive materials like rope and things like that. A sharp plain edge will outperform a serrated edge, in my opinion, on everything. Seat belts, rope, an adequately sharp plain edge will get right through those things quicker than a serrated edge, in my opinion. Now, keep in mind, this is my opinion. I'm just one person. Some people out there could differ with my opinion, and they could tell me, and if they present some evidence to the contrary, then I'll change my viewpoint. But right now, there's not much evidence out there other than conjecture and anecdotal stories that serrations cut better. In my eyes, and I've done a lot of cutting, serrations do nothing better than a sharp plain edge. Now, where serrations do have a place is in a couple of scenarios. A, you have a novice knife user who is going to buy a knife, use it, and never sharpen it, ever. That's probably the most likely scenario. Before I get into that, I want to say there's a common misconception with serrations, and the whole widespread idea is that serrations are serrated so that they act like a saw and a knife at the same time. They saw through materials. While that is kind of true, serrations were not made for that. Spyderco came up with the first fully serrated knife, and the whole reasoning behind it was that these scallops provide more cutting surface for this length of edge. So I think it's something like 23% more cutting edge. If this was a plain edge versus this having serrations, the serrations has, I think, 23% more cutting area than a plain edge. So the purpose of this isn't to saw through abrasive materials, it's to add more cutting surface for your blade. So, I mean, you could say you're getting more bang for your buck because you have more cutting surface area. Now, a side effect of having serrations is that a novice knife user can keep a serrated edge knife sharp longer than a plain edge knife? Let's say you have an amateur user and he's cutting all kinds of abrasive materials, hitting nails. He may be cutting on cement. He may be cutting on ceramic. All types of things can play hell on a plain edge knife. A serrated edge knife will be able to last through those things. Not because they're more durable, it's because the teeth on a serrations, just say my hand is ceramic and this guy is cutting on ceramic, concrete, what have you. The teeth on the serrations act as a buffer from the material he's actually cutting on, and the teeth are getting dulled instead of the actual cutting edge that is up inside these scallops. So you can see these scallops and the teeth. The teeth are going to be what's contacting the cutting surface and not the sharp scallops. Now the recessed cutting edges that you see are going to stay sharp because they're never actually touching the cutting surface. It's going to damage the edge. That's one big plus that serrated edges have, is if you have an experienced user, then they're more than likely going to be able to keep cutting with a serrated knife long after a plain edge knife would have went dull. Now if you have an experienced knife user, in my eyes it's going to be the exact opposite. They're going to keep a plain edge knife sharp, and they're going to be able to cut things long after a novice user with a serrated knife is going to be having a hard time getting through material. Their knife is eventually going to go dull. It will still cut, but an experienced user with a sharp plain edge is going to zip right past them. They're just going to be able to push cut through the rope or push cut through the seat belt, while this guy with his dull serrated edge knife is going to be sitting there sawing through the material. So that's why a lot of people think serrated edges are meant to do that. It's not really like that. It's just that more inexperienced knife users have serrated edges and they're dull because they never sharpen them. So it just ends up looking like they're having to saw through the material. Serrated edges will push cut just like a plain edge if it's sharp, adequately sharp. So yeah, I prefer plain edge just because it's more aesthetically pleasing, easier to sharpen to me, cuts better to me, again this is just my opinion, than a serrated edge. Now I did test this on rope just a second ago, and it does cut through the rope well, but it's no faster than a sharp plain edge, honestly. I have no bias here. If it was faster, then I would say so. It's honestly not any faster or any more efficient than a plain edge. But if these two knives were stuck out somewhere in the field, this would keep cutting longer than this. It's just a fact. So serrated edges do have their place, but in EDC rolls, I think plain edges went out hands down. If you're in a rescue situation where you need to know your knife is going to cut no matter what, sure, grab a serrated knife. Or if you are a fisherman and you're cutting netting all day, sure, grab a serrated edge knife. But for EDC rolls and most other things, a plain edge will work better, in my opinion. So I hope this clears that up. If you guys want to see a serrated knife sharpening video, then I'll be more than happy to do that. But if not, then I'll just leave it be. One thing I want to show I'm proud of, I just tested this tilt and resharpened it. I laid the edge back to 30 degrees inclusive and polished it up to 10,000 grit. Van X75 does not like to be sharpened on at all. It fought me the whole way. It took forever. I'm telling you, it took forever. It's sharp though, which is cool. It's a cool knife, good steel. Anyway, just wanted to add that in there. Thanks for watching, guys. And if this didn't answer your questions, let me know and I'll do something else. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.